Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Around the Table GTA. I've been pretty frustrated recently because every time I make an episode, I just don't like it and I start doing something different. I kind of find an excuse to just destroy everything and just going through the whole episode, listening to it and being like, no, this isn't it, or going through it halfway and just not liking it changes everything, and it can be very tiring because you go through an episode, like most of my episodes that I actually go through, people don't realize, and I think I mentioned this before, but if my episode's 5 minutes, it's really like 15 minutes because I have to go through the episode, I have to edit it, I have to listen to things that I didn't necessarily like, or I want to change to make it sound better. Sometimes I just have um, just a really good run. And what I mean by that is I'll say a bunch of things. I really like it. I'm going to just stop, cut it, and throw it up online or even queue it up for something later. But, perfectionism is an excuse for me to kind of stop things. And it's actually kind of unfortunate because there's been some really good episodes where maybe I didn't like a minute or two of it and I've completely scrapped it because it wasn't something that um, I wanted, or it's not going the way that I want. So I just want to kind of like renew it. But I get to the point where I'm just so tired that I can't add on to whatever I was talking about and I just delete everything. It's not the best practice because sometimes you go and you start talking about something and you're like, oh, I swear I talked about that before. But you did, you just didn't save it. And this is just going to the topic of the episode. It's excuses. There's a saying that I heard when I was younger, and it stays with me to this day that it goes, excuses and assholes. Everyone has one. So it's basically saying that everyone has an excuse. But do we wonder why we make excuses? Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse. Sometimes it's us not wanting to deal with something. It could also be us being afraid to deal with something that we're not too sure of. Something that I've learned with dating and just generally talking with people is that sometimes someone will make an excuse because they don't know how things will turn out if they accept that event. Whether it'll be something exciting or they might be too pumped for it and it becomes something that's actually boring. That expectations could run high, anxiety could go up, and then things just won't be the way that they wanted to. So instead, they reject the date, or they reject hanging out, or they just stick to the same things. You see older people doing the same stuff. It's because they know what the result is going to be, and they know that that result they're okay with or they like. And that's something that is kind of innate in human nature. We are creatures of pattern, and sometimes, especially if you've grown up in harsh conditions or other things that I'll just use harsh conditions to cover all of that, you don't know how to transition to the next step. Um, I remember mentioning to someone that, they're acting poor, and it's not an insult on them, but it's more of the mindset and the actions that they're doing is something that they shouldn't be doing anymore because it's not the right thing that they should be doing, if that makes sense. It's more of like someone being in like a survival mode when everything's okay. It's hard to get out of survival mode, especially if a majority of your life has been like that. So if you're into, or if you've been so used to harsh relationships, and then someone's treating you nice and then you're all paranoid, you do have your right to be paranoid. But at the same time, you have to open up your heart, open up your eyes to see that not every relationship or interaction is going to be negative. This is something that a lot of different sides, whether you want to say it's the media or the government, or I could say even hate groups use, where they use that comfort or discomfort of something to help push a movement because of people's insecurities. Excuses are the things that we use to hold up certain standards in society and in our own lives to justify it. We can justify almost anything if we have enough time to talk, but what are we doing to actually improve our scenarios? Are we making our own spaces to make things better? Or are we making new spaces that are actually causing more of a rift between different parties, whether it be race, whether it be sex, whether it be class, or whether it be age? It's something to really consider when we use an excuse to either put something down, get out of something, or defend something that we think may be right. Excuses are excuses. There's always an answer and there's always a way out. And I think a lot of people deal with excuses or use excuses because sometimes they're not comfortable with dealing with a reality, or they're not able to think that maybe whoever they're dealing with has changed or has a different opinion or might think of them differently. In an older episode, I talked about this clip that I posted where someone was just they're confused. I guess you could say they were confused, but they were having like an existential thought. And that is something that kind of goes on when some people make excuses, because some people really think through every decision that they make. Some people don't, right? How do we get out of the trend of excuses? Well, we need to know why we're making the excuse. Anytime you have a plan, or if you want to cancel something, think about it before you use something like the weather or I don't have money, because we've all seen people who are broke and they're outside all the time. Or, when it's that emergency call, you're there. This is something that's happened with my friend group, including myself, where sometimes we feel that we're too busy. And I remember the most significant thing, at least in my life as of now, where one of my friends got very sick, and they almost died, basically. And there's been multiple scenarios where I've had people in pretty dark spots, but some people were only available when that happened. And after that happened, seeing that near-death experience, they wanted to hang out a lot more. We don't need to wait until something is near death. And I mentioned this near the end of most seasons because I just want to put that reminder out there where, there is someone that cares about you. There are people that are looking out for you. There are people that want to take the time or make the time to find you or talk to you. I was talking with someone and they were like, why would you even put an anonymous question thing in your stories or whatever? What kind of person can't just ask you a question? And to kind of answer that for everybody, number one, it's fun, right? Some people don't understand different concepts of fun. You're not going to understand how everyone deals with entertainment. Number two, sometimes there is a drift between people. People don't talk to each other. You could be good friends with someone and haven't talked to them in years. There's some people that I used to talk to almost every day, And now I'm lucky if I hear from them twice a year. Even there was one time I challenged a friend because I knew that they were talking a lot of crap, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'll make this easy. If you're so serious about this, because they're just a flop master. If you don't know what a person who flops is, it's someone who just always has an excuse, uh, and they're always bailing and whatever. So I'm like, okay, if you're so busy, whatever, just message me once a week. That's the challenge. Or you know what? Scrap that. Make it once a month. That means you have to try to contact me once every month, and that's 12 times in a year. There's 365 days in a year. It's not really hard to message someone once every month, and the person's like, yeah, 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 I could do that, no problem, this and that. Oh, you're being too serious, or oh, wow, you really think that I'm like that? Guess what? They were like that because, they made the excuse. There's certain things that we prioritize. Maybe I'll do an episode on priorities. But there's things that we'll always prioritize until the situation changes. And, don't let that hurt you, especially if certain people don't make you a priority. You don't know what else is happening in their lives, all right? So, maybe after hearing this episode, go chat with someone that you've been thinking about talking to. Some people think a lot, but they don't act enough. And that's where the excuses come. We need to stop making excuses for what we want to do or where we want to be by acting on our thoughts that will affect us in a positive life. I'm not saying go and listen to your intrusive thoughts and do something wild. What I'm saying is try to think of all the times that you've avoided something or you didn't do something and find out why. Anyways, that's it for this episode. It's more of a thinking episode. This is like the fourth version of episodes, but hey, you gotta try until you make it. So anyways, hopefully you guys like this episode, and if it is on a platform that you could share or you could do that to help other people find this. Either way, hopefully you guys have a nice day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.